I don't know, Maddie, you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready, I think.
Good evening, everyone. You're on NLIHC's Tenant Talk Live, our one and only resident engagement call that is now monthly. I want to reiterate that, not bi-weekly, but now the first Monday of every month. Thanks for joining us on this election eve. I'm sure you all have probably a lot of things going on either today, tonight, or tomorrow. So thanks for taking some time to hear from a great speaker out in Washington State about some of the work they're doing. And then we'll also go over some election protections from a national perspective. So while we wait to get started, as we normally do, I'd love if everyone could put in the chat where you're calling in from, just so I can get a sense of where everyone is. And yeah, we'll get started in a couple minutes. And also want to note that if you need closed captioning, it's at the bottom of the screen, on the bottom of your bar. And then I'm working on finding out who the captioner is right now. So give me 1 second. So yeah, just feel free to put in the chat where you're from. Thanks. So we see Paul, our COO from Arlington, Virginia. Hi, Paul. We have Michael Anderson from Portland, Oregon. We have Jennifer Mohawk from Houston, Texas. AJ from Wisconsin. Caitlin Humphreys from Honolulu. We have Karen Reside, Long Beach, California. Kate Parker from Mercy Housing in Tacoma, one of Mattie's, I assume, comrades. Kate Walton in Flint, Michigan. We have Talia Gwinsberger from Burlington, Vermont. We have Irma Love from Racine, Wisconsin. Rosa Alcaraz from La Mesa, California. Lakeisha Taylor from Lakeisha Taylor Homes, or sorry, Lakeisha Taylor, I don't know if you put where you're from. Bree Sillery from the New Mexico Coalition to End Homelessness. Patrice Shelton from Richmond, Virginia. We have Lynn Soderstrom from Minnesota. We have Tommy Renee Hetman from Portland, Oregon. My supervisor, Joey Lindstrom from Minneapolis, has joined us. He'll be doing the election protections that I mentioned. Vernua Noble Hanrahan from Memphis, Tennessee. So yeah, we got a pretty wide range of attendees tonight, so that's great. So I guess we can get started. Like I said, Caroline and Maddie, feel free to take 15 minutes if you need to. I think we have a little bit more flexibility in our schedule, but Caroline, I'll hand it over to you, right? That's okay.
Yeah, that's
all right.
Great. Yeah,
take it away.
Thank you all for having us. We're very excited in Washington to be doing this work and working with residents. So for those who don't know what we do, my name is Caroline. I'm the Director of Organizing. I use she and they pronouns, and I'm at the Washington Low Income Housing Alliance and the Resident Action Project. And so it's the Resident Action Project, or RAP, who is doing this wonderful tenant work. And so just as a quick intro, RAP is a statewide network in Washington led by people who have experienced housing injustice. And together we're building power to change state policy through storytelling, organizing, and civic action. And our aim is to build a statewide network of people who are directly impacted by housing and homelessness issues, who are leading the charge for that social change. And so RAP, we have a wonderful steering committee who are coming from all over the state and who take on mobilization, recruitment, co-lead on trainings for other RAP members. And there's so much, a part of all of the advocacy that the Housing Alliance does, and including all of our actions during the legislative session and throughout the whole year. And so, get out the vote is a huge thing too, that RAP members are really engaged in, to be part of the whole process, from, getting out the vote, getting people elected, and then working with them during the legislative session, getting to actually meet all of these folks too during the legislative session, and really advocate for the things that they need. And so what we had done this year was work on different organizing trainings to talk about different options for people to get out the vote, voter education, registration, etc. And we started out with doing a lot of relational organizing work. And so I'm guessing that y'all have talked about relational organizing, but these trainings are specifically like those kitchen table, talks where we talk to family, friends, and people who live in your buildings, your neighborhood. And that made a huge impact on folks to think about who they can connect with Get Out the Vote, and really knowing that this political realm is really personal to them, to all of us. And so people were really excited to be able to connect in a different way with people that they know, and understanding that because they go to these trainings, they're actually the expert on how to move through this part of the world. So, that's another way for them to work on leadership and helping others and learning all at the same time. And so we definitely had people registering voters in low-income housing, and Mattie's going to be talking about that. But we also had people going out to safe parks and navigation centers, and just different things that they were doing on their own as well. And we helped with just inspiring folks to do that through our newsletters, through voter education, through our statewide call that we have monthly too. We had a whole program on voter education and things that they can do to get out the votes. We also pointed them to the National Low Income Housing Coalition's, websites, and 2020, voter education, and made sure that they had all the opportunities to go to these different trainings and watch the videos and get ready in the way that works for them. We also held some ballot parties, which were fun, and mix those in with power hours. So for us, a power hour is just, helping to let them know more about RAP and the types of work that we do, like ballot parties. So for me personally, that was pretty new, and it was great to learn alongside with residents on gathering their own folks from their local areas to come to these things. And I know one of the first ballot parties was put on by my former coworker, Kiki Cervantes, who was the main community organizer for RAP. And she had connected with the Housing Development Consortium, the HDC, and Poverty Action. And just, being in coalition with folks and doing this together is really the way to go, because then, you can connect with more people. We also did peer texting, and we also found out, like, what is it that you're doing around Get Out the Vote? So other people were very concerned too about their local folks, and doing campaign support, digital organizing, and even organized for voter accountability. So they're setting up some things for afterwards to check in on people and getting plans to vote. And then our local organizing chapter leads were doing some things. So that's something that's kind of new for us. We're trying to gain momentum to have more RAP chapters statewide. But Mattye Barry Evans, who's here with us from Mercy Housing in Tacoma, is going to talk about all the wonderful work that they've been doing within their building, and then also Mercy Housing as a whole. Take it away.
Hi, my name is Mattye Barry Evans. Thank you, Ms. Caroline. My name is Mattye Barry Evans. I'm the Resident Service Coordinator for Mercy Housing here in Tacoma, Washington. In its new Tacoma apartments, we have affordable housing. I'm so happy to be part of RAP. We joined RAP. We went up to the Housing Advocacy Day up in Olympia, and we had 2 residents to go there, and they got really passionate about the RAP program. So we organized here at New Tacoma. And since organizing, we went through the COVID thing, and we're still going through the COVID thing, but we're managing to have weekly meetings with RAP. And during those weekly meetings, we do voter education. We talk about voter education, talk about all the things about voting, why it's so important to vote. We do that. We also doing our regular events like food banks and daily giveaways. Um, we we talk about voting. We we just drilled it in. Voting, voting, voting. It's so important because affordable housing is so important. Uh, we need affordable housing. We need people to get out to vote to make sure that we have affordable housing for each and every person. Each and every person should have an opportunity to have affordable housing. Housing is stability. Housing is, making people healthy. They're not going to be healthy if they don't have housing. So we wanted most people, and our people here at New Tacoma, our REP program, we got about 21 active members, and some of them are community residents as well. Um, and they are very involved in making sure that each and every person is getting out to vote. We we're doing our events and stuff. We put out registration forms. We put out pamphlets. We are a very diverse group here at New Tacoma. We put out. We have a large population of Koreans and Vietnamese. We made sure each and every person had the information in their language so they could understand to make sure they are voting as well. So, and doing our virtual meetings, uh, we our daily programming, doing healthy eating, bingo, exercise, and peer conversation. We talked about voting and rap because we want to make sure rap is continuing to be the lead in this. And also Mercy Housing. Mercy Housing also push for people to vote. Um, and then we also have some ballot parties here at New Tacoma so people can find out what their different people are standing for in doing the voting and everything and who to vote for and stuff. We know we could not tell people who to vote for. But we wanted to make sure they had a platform to know what these candidates were standing for. When the ballots came in on October 16th, we want to make sure we ask people, did you get your ballots? And make sure they had the ballots and make sure they followed through with voting at that time. And most people got theirs in, and that was good. And the ones that did not receive their ballots, we did some troubleshooting and problem solving around that. And what we did was, um, I made sure that they had essential rides and different things so they can get to the election center to make sure they sign up to vote, so to make sure they are in as well. Um, we also, which we want to make sure that I don't leave out anything, so I've got some notes here because it's so important here. We also today, for instance, we had a special giveaway where we give away, the gloves and masks and hand sanitizer because, like I said, we still experience this COVID thing. We want to make sure people are safe. So um, we had a couple of people using our new tablets that we got from AARP, making sure going on the votewa.gov. And they was checking those ballots and make sure they had received them and make sure the status was accepted. So that was a big thing today. And we was able to check about 64 people and everyone had actually voted and everything and their ballot had been accepted. So we've been doing a lot of things, and we continue to talk about voting. And tomorrow we are going to be out in the lobby and making sure that people, everything is still going good and encouraging people as they come in and out to vote. Because, like I said, we do have resident people, community people to come in and out. So we're out there making sure people are voting. And that's the same thing with Mercy Housing as a whole, making sure that people are voting because it's so important. So that's what I have to say. Thank you guys so much for having Caroline and I here and talk about the great things that we are doing and how we're pushing our community to do the same thing that we are standing for. Because again, affordable housing is what we are want to happen for each and every person. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mattye, and thank you, Caroline. Do you mind if I ask a couple questions? Or, well, I want to also see if anybody in the audience does. I don't see many yet, but while that happens, can I ask you both a couple questions, if that's okay? So I was wondering what kind of voter education you all were doing in those meetings. Was it like anything specific, or like pamphlets, like, you know, things like that? Like,
Yeah, we was doing the pamphlets on there and just general information around voting, you know,
okay,
what dates and different things like
okay,
that, you know, general information. But yeah, making sure they get it. But like I said, it was important because we have a very, very diverse population.
hmm,
So we wanted to make sure that they had the information they needed to make sure that they get to vote.
in their language. Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, that's great.
Mhm. Yeah,
Um,
and we had volunteer interpreters and different things too available to help us to make sure that happened.
that's fantastic.
Mhm.
That's great.
And then on our end, we also did, as far as voter education, we do have a large following as well of houseless folks too,
Mhm.
and people people who have lived experience that now also work for like outreach and folks who are houseless. So we just made sure that people knew that they could still vote and knew like how that works, know that they, you know, as far as place of residence, they could put, you know, the corner of this and that, and then just put like a mailing address so that people knew where they could go. Also for navigation centers, there, you know, different ones were allowing people to use their address and, you know, gather information in that way. Also, you know, making sure that folks who have a conviction record understand what is you know who is eligible and how to find out. And so that's definitely a huge thing, even for, I mean, not, of course, not just houseless, but, you know, just a lot of people in housing too, just trying to figure out, you know, what is possible. We had so many people who are just excited to vote this year, and just, or maybe not just excited, it's more like they knew how dire it was to vote this year too. And so a lot of questions came up with, you know, am I able to do this, and how do I do this? So voter education on that end was huge for our for Resident Action Project and the rest of the Alliance.
Gotcha. Mattye, I was wondering, were you able to have any interaction with elected officials at all? Or Caroline was, I'm assuming RAP was, but specifically with emerging housing, was there any interaction like that, or with their staff or anything like that?
No, not with the elected officials. We
Okay,
really didn't have any conversation with them. We just did organizations and different programs that was helping us promote voter registration and education.
gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that can
But
obviously be really hard to do. So,
mhm.
yeah.
On this, and we both have a C3 and a C4. So, and
Right.
RAP is actually both engaged in C3 work and C4 work. Um, and, you know, we're, folks are able to, you know, volunteer for phone banking and doing some things that are very specific. And some of those, you know, town halls and phone banking, then a lot of candidates were on those calls, you know, ahead of time, and introducing themselves and you know, talking about housing specifically too. So because we were phone banking for folks who have a housing platform, then they're able to connect in that way. So definitely some of our RAP folks who have more of an interest with on that end of things did have opportunities to be parts of you know, town halls, and be you know, also connecting folks if candidates wanted to speak to folks with lived experience to understand what the needs are going to be, you know, once and I guess if they're elected. So there's a whole other arm of volunteer opportunities that are offered if it's something that they're interested in.
Yeah, I was thinking about our last call. We had some people from Portland, Maine, and they were working on registering people that were experiencing homelessness. And part of that advocacy was people with that experience before. They weren't currently experiencing homelessness that they had before, but they were doing, you know, candidate engagement type meetings where the candidate would be on record, you know, saying that I will, you know, do XYZ to support homelessness and housing. So I think that can be pretty powerful to get that type of hook, honestly, on a politician or a candidate to do so. So I'm always interested to hear if that ever happens. So yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, I mean, so one of the things too is just that there are opportunities that we try to bring in our rep members, like make it available to them. So we did have a couple of rep members who were part of the endorsement committee for the C4. So they got to read questionnaires and help make decisions on
Yeah.
who to endorse. So that's also a huge part of like understanding the system and also getting some more access to folks too. And then, yeah, well, you know, one of the things too, eventually too, is all of our folks, once we, I mean, all of course, all the questionnaires can be made public too. So if people want to know, you know, what people wrote about, because they're all housing questions, those are available to people. And yeah, just one of the things too for later is we do a lot of connections with folks who are elected for the legislative session, and we'll have our housing and homelessness advocacy day that Mattye has been a part of. I think she said for 9 years she's been going to our had, and this year it'll be a whole week's worth of lots and lots of meetings, but there we definitely center RAP folks and folks with who have been impacted by systems as you know, the central focus of who we want to have that access to speak directly to lawmakers. So that's just part of the work that the Alliance does too, as a follow-up to all of this.
Gotcha. I see Shay has their hand raised. Shay, I'm going to unmute you if you want to ask your question. You are unmuted.
I'm so sorry, Cal. I should have changed my name in the box. This is Shalonda Rivers. Hi.
Oh. Hey, Shalonda.
I'm so sorry. Hi,
First, let me just say
everyone.
that Shalonda is one of our board members. FYI. So.
Thank you. So I do have a question for Carolina or Mattye, I believe. Yes, Miss Mattye. In your voting efforts and everything that you've been doing, thank you all for doing that. I am here in Florida, and one of the things that I signed up to do is to be a poll monitor. So if anyone run into any issues or any problems, have you all educated the people on if they run into any issues on the day of voting, if they're decide to go in to vote, who to seek help from or where to get assistance from? Because I just want to make that clear that there will be poll monitors. I know here in the state of Florida, we have a, I believe it's a toll-free number or a local number, and it's going to give anyone who having any issues access to a bunch of attorneys that's going to be, you know, ready and accepting these calls for any issues or any concerns. So that was just my question. Are you all familiar, or do you all have that there? Where you at, and you know?
Yeah, thank you for your question. So Washington State for years now has been a mail-in state, and so to be honest, I'm sure that there are places or someone to talk to about that. I think it's because it's a mail-in state, then that wasn't necessarily on my purview personally. I don't know if Mattye, since you are dropping off ballots, if there is anything on your end that you thought about.
Yeah. No, they just usually go into the election center and then they will just help them and go from there. And I'm not sure if that's what they call them, the poll monitors or not with that. But yeah, there is a mail-in state and they just go down if they're having some trouble and stuff. Because like I said, I refer back in reference to an organization that helps us out with all the voter education and registration stuff. And then if someone is having trouble with the ballots or their ballots they haven't received their ballots, then they go to the election center and they make sure that they fill out the necessary paperwork so they can vote there. So, and I'm not sure what their title is there, Shay. But thank you for the information.
You're welcome. Thank you all.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's actually a great question, Shalonda, because yeah, later Joey will be talking about how to deal with any issues that one might and probably will deal with tomorrow. You know, the resources that are available to you. And
Yeah,
Mindy,
because
sorry.
not to cut you. I know, even like she said, Washington is a melon state, and every state have their own rules and own ways of how they're doing it. But even just with dropping off ballots, like if there's issues and if there's an indefinite need, like I said, I know here we have access to a bunch of attorneys, so I thought that was a really great resource. So just a FYI there, like if there's even monitors there while they are dropping off the absentee ballots. So that was just my question. Thank you.
Yeah, and it looks like Mindy,
Yep.
wonderfully, who is a RAP member and also a Housing Alliance board member, dropped our voter protection hotline for Washington State and also dropped the nationwide hotline in the chat too. So thank you so much, Mindy.
I will send that to the entire audience. I think it went just to the panelists.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I had a couple more questions actually. I was wondering for both of you, the ballot parties, how did that go with social distancing? If that ran into any issues with that?
No, it was a virtual ballot
Okay.
party. Yeah, it's a virtual ballot party anyway, and they just talked about different candidates and what they're standing for and different things like that, what party. So yeah, but it went well.
Gotcha.
Mhm.
Ours too, like the different ones that we had done. And yeah, it's interesting how with everything going virtual, there are definitely access issues, and then there's also more access for some other folks too. So we're just learning as we go. So when we no longer have to do this, then we can offer more options at the same time. So.
Great. Yeah. And on the ballot parties, I was wondering, were you able to follow up with everyone that went to the event, or, like who did that follow up?
Yeah, most, at least from our side, I think, we definitely did like follow up emails, and then some of the ballot parties ended up being smaller. I think they might have been larger if we did it a little bit earlier. We're finding that once we did it later, so many people in Washington voted early, which is amazing and excellent. So then it just ended up that there were less people at some of the ballot parties than we had anticipated. And so we did do some follow-up, but it wasn't as necessary.
Yeah.
Maddie, this is Joey at NLIHC. I have a question for you. Were you able to connect with 100% of your residents about the election after ballots were received in the mail by folks on October 16th?
I'm sorry, can you repeat yourself there?
Were you able to contact all of your residents at Mercy Housing?
Oh yeah, it wasn't 100%, but it was, not 85 to 95% of the resident we connect with and everything.
And
So,
was that mostly Mercy Housing staff, or were resident leaders contacting one another, or how did you did you go about those contacts?
Yeah. So like I said, we had different programs that we was having in the lobby there because we have to, like I said, the social distancing and different things. So we was had 3 or 4 residents as well as myself, the staff there, to help out with that and connecting with people and talking about voting and putting different things out there so they can know about the voting information and what was going on here in Pierce County. So yeah, so that's how we connected with them. But we did utilize our resident, especially our rep leaders, to help us to get the information across. Because peer to peer, it usually be more effective than staff to peer.
Gotcha.
That's really helpful. That's what I was kind of curious about.
Oh yeah, for sure. So yeah, so we did get it was a large amount and stuff because, like I said, we do a lot of engagement, and we encourage residents to get engaged and to talk to each other and do things as a community. So it's, you know, really powerful to have our rep leaders to be out there to help us process that, to make sure that that's happening and helping us explain to the other residents why it's so important to vote. So it was good. Yeah.
Sorry, Maddie, I think I might have missed. Did you say how many residents you have in your property?
Yeah, we have about 136 residents here at New Tacoma.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Great.
And then from what we know too, Maddie had mentioned to me too, just like Mercy Housing, just all the different buildings, we're also doing voter engagement as well. And I forget, Maddie, if you want to share like the number of, I guess, hits, meaning like voter engagement and voter registration.
Yeah, voter education and registration and stuff. I know the last time we was in one of our COVID resident service meetings, I think one of the managers was saying over 900 hits and everything and stuff. And we also was going for, I think, 2020 registration for nationally for Mercy Housing, I think, if I got that information correct. Yeah.
Great.
But we did it, yeah, but we was, as for its Mercy Housing as a whole, yeah, we are going for voting and, you know, putting voting in there and making sure people are aware how important it was to vote and getting the residents to actually register to vote.
Great. Well, yeah, if anybody in the audience has any more questions, let's see, I think, oh, Joey just put one in the chat. Yeah, I think that's all the questions. Olivia, if you have any questions you want to ask Tori, feel free. Joey, too.
I don't have any questions, but having done civic engagement, I know how difficult and how sustained your efforts have to be. So I just want to offer my congratulations, just as a valiant effort already going into tomorrow.
For sure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you both for joining. We really appreciate it. If you want to stick around, feel free. And now we will actually, I'm glad she wanted to ask that because Joey is going to speak about election protections on the day of for voting. So Joey, feel free to take it away.
Yeah, hi everyone. I just want to share a few things about election protection and making sure that voters are covered under threat of voter intimidation or suppression, and that they know what to do in those moments. One of the things that Mindy and I were posting about in the chat box were the election protection hotlines that folks can call. And these are really important hotlines and phone numbers for people to have, because when, oh, excuse me, when there's voter intimidation or voter misinformation happening, it's really important for folks to really quickly get in touch with an attorney. And in some cases, they can do an immediate intervention, but in other cases, what they'll be doing is documenting the voter intimidation or suppression, and then including that in data and reports that they produce to inform policies moving forward. I'm going to share a few really quick slides. I'm not going to take up too much time, but I want to make sure that for those of you who like visuals, that we give you the phone numbers that are necessary and some of the key tips. Protecting against voter suppression and intimidation. Remember, any action intended to deter an individual or group from voting is what you would consider voter suppression. And I should do a quick shout out to the ACLU of Michigan, from whom I have stolen a handful of these slides. They joined us for our September webinar on voter suppression and intimidation that I encourage any of you to take a look at the recording of. Voter suppression tactics take many shapes and forms. There's going to be a lot of coronavirus voter suppression this year in terms of people being pushed to leave a line or a polling location if they're not wearing a mask or successfully socially distancing. These types of rules are not going to be official, and people should be aware that coronavirus should not be a reason to scare people away from a polling place. We really want to make sure that anyone who is facing any kind of resistance to casting a vote is in touch with the election protection hotlines. So a lot of voter suppression takes the form of voter ID laws, and I'll get to that in another slide in just a moment. But one of the ways low-income people often are prevented from casting a ballot is by not having the correct ID that will allow them to vote successfully. So beyond that, I can tell you that polling location closures, especially as they happen close to the day of the election, or changes to polling locations, are another common form of voter suppression. And the lack of letting people know about these changes. So the key thing for any of you as advocates is to make sure that people in your communities are aware of what changes might be necessary. We've seen a few of these in Minnesota and Wisconsin recently. There was a recent change made that ballots have to be received and not postmarked by Election Day. And this is going to lead to a lot of confusion. We've also had a court case recently in Michigan saying that it is illegal for any paid staff person to give someone a ride to the polls because that's considered an illegal incentive and so forth. So as low-income communities face voter intimidation and voter suppression, they might be wondering, what can I do? And the key thing for you and for advocates in your networks is to remember the 3 E's, to just educate people about their rights, to elevate issues when issues are coming up, and then to engage polling location officials about any problems that arise. So we've already talked about the most important resource is the Election Protection Hotline. And on this slide, I have the 866-R-VOTE and then the same number in Spanish, as well as the, for Asian languages, the API vote, and then also the Arabic language line. So understanding voter ID law is really important, but voter ID laws change considerably from state to state. One resource that we really encourage people to be aware of is voteriders.org, where they give information about how people can get ID and what ID can be used. There's also the National Voter ID Hotline at 844-338-8743. That's right here on the slide there. And then I also wanted to spend a quick moment talking about disinformation. You'll see a lot of disinformation online, especially in social media, and it's important to always produce pro-voting messages that are from reliable sources. And then secondarily, to never ever repost or retweet or share photos that you're trying to argue against, right? So you'll sometimes do things on social media, or maybe you'll see others do things where they'll retweet something they disagree with, and they'll say, "Can you believe these people are saying this, incorrect information about the election?" That sort of thing. Whenever you repost or retweet, that helps a post start to trend. That shows that it was viewed and that it was shareable. And what happens with the algorithms of these social media sites is they then put that misinformation in front of more people. So really be careful that you never repost or retweet or share any photos of something that you're against. Only amplify those things that you're supporting. And so when you see people online who are trying to spread misinformation, make sure that you engage your network, not the person spreading the misinformation, and make sure the correct information gets out there. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. I just wanted to go over those quick pointers and make sure that everybody is aware of the key things to keep in mind on Election Day as we consider protecting people's rights to vote. One thing I did not have on the slide, but I want to remember folks of, actually 2 things, is first that people should know that if they're denied an opportunity to cast a ballot, that they should request a provisional ballot. And a provisional ballot is something that people use in the case where the polling location hasn't determined that they're an eligible voter, so they cast a provisional ballot. That provisional ballot is not counted on election night, but it is counted in the case where there might be any recounts. And if you've been following elections in the United States for the last 20 years, you might know there's a lot of recounts. So a provisional ballot oftentimes is a really important ballot to submit, and people should know that they should request a provisional ballot if they're being challenged. Secondarily, we're encouraging people, because there might be very long lines, to show up with a bottle of water and with a charged cell phone. Because the truth is, if you're in line at the time the polls close, they can't deny you the right to vote. So if polls close at 8 o'clock, you get in line at 7:59, and that line is 3 hours long, then you'll just be voting at 11 p.m. It is, of course, unlawful and illegal for people to, for poll workers to say, oh, you got to leave the line, the polling place is closed. And anyone who's walking around the line giving that information is participating in voter intimidation. The second reason we're encouraging people on election day to bring a charged cell phone is if there are incidents that break out, it's really important to film any intimidation or violence or harassment that's taking place at a polling location. We actually have some pretty disturbing examples already at early voting sites this year. And that's really heartbreaking, but please know that you will be in a good position to protect your community from these kinds of efforts if you're able to document it and share it and so forth. So please, if you're going to the polling location, make sure you've got your phone ready in case anything like that happens, though I expect it'll be pretty rare. So those are some tips to keep in mind for election day. And I'll open it up for any questions that folks have about voter intimidation or election protection. So there's a comment here from Jennifer Mohawk, which actually I've only read the top part of as I'm looking at it in the chat box. There really is, there's a tension between making people aware of the threat of maybe violence at polling locations or outbursts or harassments or arguments and really difficult confrontations. So you want people to be ready that might happen, but you don't want to discourage people from voting, right? And so really, I think for me, the way I've been kind of couching it is the way I just did, where know the hotline number so that you know who to call if anything like that happens. Obviously, in situations where people might have weapons, of course, that actually is appropriate for law enforcement to be involved and so forth to keep everyone safe. But in most cases, the best thing to do will be to call the election protection hotline, make sure that the attorneys are aware of what needs to happen, and then to follow their guidance. And if at all possible, document the incident and make sure that people know what happened, because it is true, if we spend too much time talking about how worried we are about potential incidents at polling locations, that can discourage people from voting, and that's counter to our purpose. So remember, there are probably hundreds of thousands of polling locations throughout the country, and there probably won't be more than 50 or 60 that have a significant incident and so forth. So that's too many, that's a lot, but it'll still be pretty rare where this pops up. Other questions? Kyle, do you have anything coming into your chat box?
No. I think that main thing that you said from Jennifer Mohawk, just urging people to be careful, but making sure that you're still getting out to vote.
Great.
Okay. So if there's no more questions, I just wanted to wrap up with a quick update on Congress and also the CDC eviction moratorium. For those that listen to the national call today, you'll have heard that a federal court in Georgia dismissed an attempt at an injunction on the CDC eviction moratorium, meaning that it would have been ruled invalid, but the judge upheld the validity of the eviction moratorium. Now, there still needs to be more litigation done in this case, but this is a pretty big victory for advocates because he also cited our work in the judgment that he gave. So happy to hear about that, but obviously a lot more to come on that. And then I also wanted to remind people that we are still obviously pushing for a COVID relief package. Tomorrow will very much shape what that might look like and how that might go. So we'll obviously be watching that, and we will update you all on how the election will affect that moving forward. Probably in our next call, we'll definitely do that. But Congress comes back on November 9th, and then Joey, correct me if I'm wrong, I think the Senate comes back on November 9th, and the House comes back about a week after that. So
I'm actually not sure. That sounds right to me.
okay, I believe so. I'll confirm that in my follow-up email to everyone. And then I also wanted to reiterate that we still would like people to reach out to the members of Congress. So I will put in the chat our take action form where you can easily reach out to a member of Congress. It's a easy fill out form. You just put your name and address, and you'll send the message to your member of Congress. And then also wanted to reiterate that Congress still needs to pass a budget for the fiscal year. They have a continuing resolution right now through December 11th. But obviously a lame duck Congress will make things very wonky probably. So we'll be monitoring that closely as it gets closer to December 11th to see if, to make sure that our priorities in a budget are passed for federal housing programs. I think that's about all I have. Joey, do you have anything else you wanted to add before we sign off?
No, thanks everybody for being here tonight. And after this meeting is over, call everyone you know and make sure that they have a plan to vote tomorrow if they haven't already voted.
Yeah, I really thank you again, Caroline and Maddie. I really appreciate you all coming on. I'm sure you all have a lot of work to do, and we appreciate everyone else coming on. Like I said, I'm sure today, tonight, tomorrow, everyone will have a lot going on. So we appreciate you taking some time out of your day to talk with us. And so, yeah, like Joey said, make sure you all get out and do everything you can to mobilize everyone around you to vote and stay safe. And so we'll see you all next month, the first Monday of next month. So have a good night, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.